So if you're watching this video now, that means you are about to learn exactly how to perform a pre-trip inspection as an instructor, okay? Now, if you're watching this video, that means that you should have gone through the whole Class A pre-trip training module that we've created. This video is going to be just an example, just to show you where the items are on the bus itself. So, when it comes to the actual training process, there's only 3 colors for the bus because it is a smaller vehicle. There's going to be green, yellow, and blue only. There's some extra blue items on this bus that are not on the Class A vehicle that I'm going to be showing you today. But we're not going to break down the videos just like we did before, because you already know exactly what the process is like in order to train somebody on how to perform a pre-trip inspection. This video is just going to show you an overall view of this bus that we currently have now, so you understand exactly where the items are and you know exactly what the pre-trip should look like when you are showing a student this inspection. Alright, so we're going to get right into it. Alright, so first we're going to start off in the front of the vehicle. Now, when you are watching this video, I want you to understand that there's no specific order for this test. The examiner for the test can ask you to do the entire vehicle, which means you can start in the front, or the examiner might ask you to do just a portion of the vehicle. So when you're studying for this pre-trip inspection, it is very important that you understand each item that is required for you to pass this test. It's not important for you to understand what the order is, okay? So from here, we're just going to do a full vehicle inspection, which means we're going to start in the front. You're going to follow along with me. The first thing we're going to talk about are your clearance lights up top. The clearance lights, you're going to have to say, are clean and functional and in amber color because they are in the front. We're going to work our way down. We're going to talk about our windshield. Our windshield is not cracked. There is no illegal stickers and there is no damage. Next is our windshield wipers. Our windshield wipers, we're going to have to say, my windshield wipers, arms and blades, are secure and operate smoothly. We're going to keep going down here. We're going to have our turn signals, which are right over here, are clean and functional. Our headlights and high beams are also clean and functional, and that's going to be matched on for both sides. And then we're going to look underneath the vehicle, and we're going to make sure that the vehicle has no puddles on the ground and there is no dripping fluid on the underside of the engine or transmission. Now, one special thing we have to do because of the bus is we have to make sure that it is level. So we're going to make sure that the bus from the front is level and we do not hear any audible air leaks, which means that the suspension is working properly. And that pretty much covers everything that you have to say for the front of the bus. So now follow me and we're going to open up the hood and we're going to see exactly what we have to say about the engine itself. Alright, so now we're on the driver's side engine compartment. Okay, so we're going to be going over a few items on this bus in particular. Now when it comes to the engine, when you're doing an inspection, the engine can change from vehicle to vehicle, alright? So you have to understand exactly what vehicle you'll be taking, but the wording that you're going to be using is going to be the exact same wording that I'm about to show you right now, alright? So if you come on in close, I'm going to show you exactly what we're talking about. So, we're going to start off over here. This is my air compressor. My air compressor is belt driven. You can see that because it is attached with a belt. It is operating properly. It is not damaged or leaking, and it is mounted securely. My air compressor belt has no more than 3/4 inch of play at the center of the belt, and there is no cracks or frays. Next thing we're going to talk about is right here. It's going to be your oil level. So your oil level is going to be, I'm going to first indicate my dipstick, which is right here. It is in safe operating range and it is above the refill mark. Next thing from there, we're going to have our power steering fluid. This is our power steering fluid. I'm going to indicate the dipstick, which is right here. It's at adequate power steering fluid level and it is also above the refill mark. Okay, we're then going to come on down here. We're going to have our power steering box. Okay, so our power steering box is mounted securely. It's not missing any nuts, bolts, or cotter keys, and it is not leaking from any power steering hoses, and it is not leaking on the box itself from any fluid. And then lastly, we're going to have our steering linkage. So our steering linkage is right here, consists of 3 pieces. My steering pitman arm, my drag link, and then my tie rod is hard to see, but it's going to be underneath here. And those are the 3 pieces of the steering linkage. What I'm going to have to say is my steering linkage, which is my arm, link, and rod, are not worn or cracked. My joints and sockets are not worn or loose, and there is no missing nuts, bolts, or cotter keys. Okay, So as we look over this engine in particular, that's everything that we have on this side to talk about. Now you're going to follow me to the other side, which is going to be the passenger side of the engine. And on this in particular engine, we're going to talk about everything else that is required for everything that's under the hood. So follow me. Alright, so now that we're on the passenger side of the engine, let's talk about the remainder items of everything that has to be talked about with under the hood. So, this item right over here, which is right in front of us, this is going to be our alternator. We're going to have to say, okay, my alternator, it is operating properly, it is not damaged or leaking, and it is mounted securely. My alternator in this case is also belt driven because there is a belt attached to it. The belt has no more than 3/4 inch of play, and it has no cracks or frays. Okay? In the middle of the engine over here on this vehicle, this is my water pump. Okay, my water pump is also going to be belt driven. You can see the belts right here. My water pump is operating properly, not damaged or leaking, and mounted securely. My water pump belt has no more than 3/4 inch of play, no cracks or frays. Underneath the alternator over here on this vehicle, we're going to have our power steering pump. That's where these two hoses are going into. This is the only thing on this vehicle that is gear driven. My power steering pump is operating properly, not damaged or leaking, and it is mounted securely. Because it does not have a belt, I do not have to talk about the belt at all. And then the last thing that we have to talk about the engine compartment is going to be my coolant level, which is right over here. So this is my coolant level. I'm going to inspect my reservoir sight glass, which is this piece of glass right over here. As you can see, it is green, which means it is full. And if the engine was not hot, I would have to remove the cap and check from the top. Okay. Now, because the engine is going to be hot, because we're going to take the truck to the test, you will not be able to remove the cap, but you still have to talk about removing the cap itself, just the wording that I use. Now, another question that I get a lot about the engine compartment itself is, hey, do I physically have to pull out the dipsticks and check the level? The correct answer is no. For this test in particular, all you have to do is you have to point and you have to talk about the items and use the exact wording that I just used there. Alright, so now we're going to get into one of the most difficult parts of the pre-trip inspection, which is inspecting the tires, the brakes, and the suspension itself. The reason why this is very difficult is on most vehicles you cannot see all of these items. But whether you see them or not, you still have to talk about them. Another reason why they are difficult is it is the largest section of the test itself, and you have to say it on every single axle. So anytime that you cross a set of tires, you're going to have to talk about your suspension, your brakes, and your tires, whether you can see these items or whether you cannot see these items. So when you are taking this vehicle for the test, make sure you know exactly what kind of suspension and brakes your vehicle has. Alright, so let's start off with the suspension. So on this in particular vehicle here, we're going to have what we call our leaf springs. So my leaf springs are not missing, shifted, cracked, or broken. Okay? We are not going to have torque arms in the front, nor air ride suspension. We're going to then move into our mounts. So our mounts are spring hangers. They are mounted securely and not cracked or broken. We're then going to have our U-bolts. Our U-bolts are mounted securely as well and not loose or missing. And then we're going to have our bushings, which is these items right over here on the top and on the bottom of the shock absorber, and they are not damaged, missing, or loose. And then all of my mounts are securely mounted to the vehicle frame or axle. The last item in the suspension is this item right here, which is my shock absorber. It is mounted securely and it is not leaking. If it was leaking, it would be leaking as some kind of oil from the hydraulic itself. Okay? Now we're going to move into the brakes. When it comes to the brakes, we have 5 different brake items we must talk about when you're talking about an air brake vehicle. Alright, so let me show you exactly what these look like. On the front of the vehicle, which is your front tires, you can see them because you open up the hood. On the back of the vehicle, you will not be able to see them because there is no hood to open up. You're going to have to crawl underneath if you did want to see them itself. Alright, so I'll start off over here. Right here, these are my slack adjusters and push rods. My slack adjuster and push rod, which is this item right here, cannot be broken, loose, or missing any parts. Cannot move more than 1 inch with the brakes released when pulled by hand. Right over here, we're going to have our brake chamber. My brake chamber has to be mounted securely. It cannot be broken, cracked, or dented, or leaking. This over here is my brake hoses, lines, and couplings. So my brake hoses, lines, and couplings cannot be cracked, worn, or leaking. Alright. Behind here, which is very difficult to see, we're going to have our brake drum, which is this outside metal piece right here. You're going to have to say my brake drum is not cracked or damaged. It is free from contaminants such as debris, oil, and grease. And it has no loose bolts or fittings. And then the last item, number 5, is going to be your brake shoes or your brake lining. You're going to have to say brake lining for the test. My brake lining is not worn dangerously thin, which is this brake pad right over here. And that covers all 5 items of the brakes. So now we're going to talk about the tire itself. So now we're going to talk about the front tire. So we're going to start in the top. My front tire has no more than 4/32 of an inch of tread depth. My tread is evenly worn, is not cut. There is no cuts or damage to the tread or to the sidewall of this tire itself. Next thing we're going to have right here is our rim. So our rim is no welds on it because all welds are illegal welds. It is not cracked or damaged, and it is secure. Next we're going to talk about our lug nuts. So our lug nuts are mounted securely. They show no signs of looseness such as rust trails or shiny treads. They are all present, and my bolt holes are not cracked or distorted. Next we're going to talk about my hub seal. Hub seals in the front are not leaking, and there is adequate fluid level inside of them. And last but not least, we're going to talk about our valve caps and stems. Over here we're going to check the tire pressure. The tire pressure has to be anywhere from 100 to 90 psi, and my valve cap and stem cannot be bent, damaged, or missing at all. Okay? And that pretty much covers everything that you have to talk about when it comes to tires, suspension, and brakes. Now remember, like I said, you're going to have to talk about this every step of the way on every axle, whether you see these items or whether you do not. So when people fail this test, they usually fail on this. Alright, so now as we inspect the rest of the vehicle, we're going to first talk about our mirrors. So our mirrors and mirror brackets are secure, they're clean, and there are no loose or missing fittings. Okay? We're going to then move to our door. Our door opens and closes properly from the outside. My hinges are secure, and all my seals are intact. Okay? My steps leading up to the entry are secure, they're solid and stable, and they're free of any debris. Alright? Now every time that we see one of these things over here, this is a reflector. So reflectors we're going to have to say are clean and functional, and they're amber color because they're towards the front. Okay? Over here is going to be a clearance light, as well as that over there, which is also going to be clean and functional and amber color. This hole over here is actually our fuel tank. So our fuel tank, we're going to have to say my cap is on tight, the fuel tank is secure, and there are no leaks from the tank or lines itself. Alright? So as we walk on down, we're going to have our reflective tape. So our reflective tape is going to be clean and functional. That's pretty much all we have to say about that. We don't have to talk about the windows at all, or the side of the bus. But one thing that we do have to talk about is what's underneath the bus. Okay, so if we come on down, we'll see what we can see. So underneath this bus is very difficult to see. So the few items that we're going to talk about are going to be your frame. So you're going to have your frame, crossmember, box, and floor. My frame, crossmember, box, and floor cannot be damaged. It has no holes on it, and is securely mounted. Okay, we're going to talk about our drive shaft. Our drive shaft must be secure, free from damage, and the coupling should be free from any debris. Then we're going to have our exhaust system underneath as well. Our exhaust is going to be connected tightly. It is also secure. It is not going to have any leaks on it, such as carbon soot or rust. Alright, so those are the 3 items that you would talk about in this case on the bus itself. Most buses are set up the exact same way. Don't forget to talk about these items even though we cannot see them. When you come to test time, you do not have to crawl underneath the bus at all. You just point and you talk just like we did for everything else. So as we continue down, we're going to have our tires over here. So the tires, we're going to say the exact same thing that we said in the front. Alright, so we're going to talk about our suspension, our brakes, and our tires. Okay, now like I said before, these tires are very difficult to see everything because there is no hood that we can open up. There are a few differences here, so I'll go over them with you. So over here we still have our leaf springs, so we're going to say, okay, my leaf springs are not missing, shifted, cracked, or broken. We're going to have what we call torque arms as well on this bus. So our torque arms are not damaged and they're not loose. And then we're going to have air ride suspension, which is our airbags. Those cannot be damaged and they cannot be leaking. Alright. When it comes to our mounts, we're going to have the same 3 types of mounts. So my spring hangers are not cracked or broken. My U-bolts are securely mounted and there's no loose or missing bolts. And then my bushings are secure and they're not missing or worn. And all my mounts are secure to the vehicle frame and axle. Now over here, when it comes to the brakes, we're going to have all the same 5 brake items, which are my slack adjusters and push rods, are not broken, loose, or missing any parts, and they cannot move more than 1 inch with the brakes released. My brake chamber, not cracked, dented, or leaking, and mounted securely. My brake hoses, lines, and couplings are not cracked, worn, or leaking. We're going to have our brake drum, which is mounted securely. It's not cracked or worn. It's free from any contaminants such as oil, debris, and grease, and it has no loose or missing bolts. And then we're going to have our brake lining, which is item number 5, which we have to say is not worn dangerously thin. All right. As we move on to our tire, we're going to have our tread depth. Our tread cannot be any more than 2/32 of an inch in the back. All right. My tread has to be evenly worn. There are no cuts to the tread or to the sidewall of the tire itself. All right. Over here, we're going to also have our rim. Our rim cannot have any welds. It has to be secure. It has to be free from damage and no cracks. We're going to have our lug nuts, which all seem to be present. There are no signs of looseness, such as rust trails or shiny treads. And all my bolt holes are free from cracks or distortions. Okay. Then we're going to have our axle seals in the back over here. We talked about the hub seal in the front, but the middle of the back is called an axle seal. Again, it cannot be leaking, and it has to be filled with adequate fluid level inside there. We're going to have our valve cap and stem cannot be broken, damaged, or leaking, or missing. And this is where we check the tire pressure. It must be anywhere from 90 to 100 psi. Now on this tire, on these back tires, we're going to have 2 tires, which means we have something in the middle called a spacer. So we're going to have to say my spacers or bud spacers are not bent, damaged, or rusted through, and the spacer is evenly centered, which makes the tires evenly separated. So even though, like I said, we could not see these items, everything that I just did is what you would have to do for the test itself. All right. Like I said before, come on over to our office in Linden. Our name of the school is called Driving Academy, and my name is Jonathan. And we'll show you specifically on this bus or on any of the other buses that we do offer. This is just one of the buses for our training. We can show you specifically on how to pass the test and give you the proper training that you need on both the pre-trip inspection, parking, and when it comes to the road driving as well. And like I said before, we can also help you find a job because we offer free lifetime job placement, and we are extremely affordable. All you need is $500 to get started in any of our programs that you do pick. All right, so let's continue with this pre-trip inspection. Over here, we're also going to have reflectors. Our reflectors are going to be clean and functional, okay? And then we're going to come around to the side. We're going to watch this puddle here. We're going to have this reflector, which is red because it's in the rear, and it is also clean and functional. So now that brings us to the back of the vehicle. So now that we're on the back of the bus, there's a few more items that we do have to check. Again, any kind of lights that you do have. So in this case, we're going to have our brake-in signal lights, our reverse lights, and some more brake lights are going to be clean and functional. Any clearance lights that you're going to have, so on this vehicle on the top of the bus, they are going to be clean and functional, and they have to be red because they are in the rear. All right. Now we also have a door back here, so we have to open and close the door. So my door opens and closes properly from the outside. My hinges are intact. And my seal is in place. All right. Next thing is we're going to talk about any kind of reflective tape that we do have. My reflective tape is clean and functional. Now, one special thing, because this is a bus, we're going to have to talk about to make sure that this vehicle is still level. So from the front and from the back, we've got to make sure it's level. So my vehicle from the back is level. There is no audible air leaks that we can hear, which means our suspension is working properly. And that pretty much covers everything on the back itself, and that almost gives you a full vehicle inspection. Now, the examiner in this case would ask you, is there anything different on that side, on the driver's side, than there was on the passenger side that we just saw? And there are a few things. To be exact, there is only one thing that is different on this side itself. All right, so we're going to show you that one more part, and then that pretty much concludes the pre-trip inspection. So the one thing that is different on this side is going to be our battery box that we're going to have to talk about. Okay, so on the bus in particular, we have to talk about the battery box. So we're going to say that the door opens and closes properly without any issues. The batteries are all tight and secure. the cell caps are present, and there is no excessive corrosion in our batteries itself. Alright, so we're going to have to talk about all that as we close that. And oh snap, I also forgot to talk about one other item, which is right over here. These are called your splash guards. So your splash guards or mud flaps are found on every tire. We're going to have to say that they are mounted securely and they are not damaged. So you just saw me do a full pre-trip inspection on this bus itself, okay? Whether we have this bus or another bus at your location, make sure you understand exactly where the items are. At no point are you ever going to train the students just like I just did all at one shot. You're going to use the same method that we used for the Class A training module that we showed you before. You're going to split it up into different colors. You're going to show them the green first. You're then going to make sure that they understand where the items are. You're then going to walk away for 10 to 20 minutes, come on back and quiz them. After that, you're going to show them the yellow, and then after that, you're going to show them the blue. All right, it is a much easier and quicker way to teach, and it makes sure that the student is actually working just like our motto says. All right, so if this video again was just to show you how an inspection is going to be done for the test itself and what our students should be saying and where all the items are on this bus, so I don't have to hear, oh no, I just train on tractor trailer because I don't know where the items are on the bus. Now there is no excuse. Here, one thing that I never want to hear any of our guys say is, I'm sorry, that's not my job. If you see me cleaning toilets or mopping a floor and I'm the owner of the company, what do you think it says about what I want from my people over here? We're looking to grow. We want you to help us grow. The only way that we can do that is to have killer training and make sure everyone's training the exact same way. So if you can duplicate exactly what I've asked you to do, then we're all going to be successful and we're all going to grow together. And hey, maybe you want to manage one of the new opening locations that we're having coming up. We're always expanding, so keep that in mind. So on the next video, we're going to talk about another topic of training itself. Have a good day.